In the unlikely event of an emergency, please calmly move toward the exit the building and gather in the parking lot to wait for further directions. In the unlikely event of an evacuation while in the classrooms, students will exit the classrooms first. Please follow them as they know where to go. Please be advised that there is no smoking allowed in any school building or on school property. In accordance with Chapter 71, Section 37 of the Massachusetts General Laws.
Thank you for coming to our Veterans Day program. In preparation for this program, we have learned about the role of military conflict. In this history of the United States, the songs we will be performing today reflect both popular sentiments and personal feelings, while representing both sacred and secular responses to war and stories of both victory and defeat.
Our school community also uses the Peace Builders program, which encourages us to think about how people should treat each other. The intersection between these two topics is interesting because we discuss our need to have people ready to protect us even as we work towards a future where violent conflict becomes obsolete. Therefore, we would like to share with you the Peace Builder Pledge.
The observance now known as Veterans Day was first marked on November 11, 1919, exactly 1 year after the World War I officially ended. At this time, it was called Armistice Day, in reference to the peace agreement that Germany had signed with the Allies exactly 1 year earlier. While this first observation was dedicated to those who had died in the war, the day eventually became a time to honor all those who had protected our country throughout its history. We will now share with you the words of Woodrow Wilson's Armistice Day proclamation, followed by a very old song with a simple message in memory of those who have died. Give us peace.
To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service, with gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing from which has freed us and because of the opportunity it has given America to show her symphony with peace and justice in the councils of the nations.
No
During the later half of the 1700s, the people of the 13 British colonies in North America became increasingly upset that Britain was collecting taxes from them without giving them any say in the government. The colonies began to protest against the rule of King George by performing their own government and by refusing to buy products that Britain was collecting taxes on. The most famous protest was the Boston Tea Party, when a group of colonies in Boston, Massachusetts boarded British cargo ships and dumped crates of tea into the Boston Harbor.
On July 2nd, 1776, the Second Continental Congress approved the Lee Resolution, which declared that the 13 colonies were no longer part of the British Empire. On July 4th, a Declaration of Independence containing many indictments against King George was quickly printed and distributed throughout the colony. This publication added fuel to the conflict that had begun with clashes between Patriots and British troops over a year earlier, and the American Revolution officially began.
With the help of a number of other countries, the war came to an end in 1783, and the United States of America were reorganized as a new country. As the new country's leaders worked to shape their government, they began a daring experiment in which the power of each branch would be balanced by the others and limited by the Constitution and its amendments. Under these rules, the government would always exist to serve the people, never to control or exploit them.
The song Chester was written by William Billings just prior to the Revolutionary War. It represents a New England singing tradition in which the lines between sacred and secular are blurred, in which lyrics and melodies are often interchangeable. Chester was one of the most popular patriotic songs of its time.
In September 1814, during the War of 1812, Lord Francis Scott Key, a prisoner exchange officer John Stuart Skinner, ordered the British flagship to secure the release of a local doctor, Dr. William Beanes. During the negotiations, they were invited to dinner with the British Vice Admiral.
The pair brought letters from captured British soldiers who had been treated by the doctor and advocated for his release. However, since the dinner conversation had also included details of a planned attack on Baltimore, none of the three could be allowed to leave until after the battle.
Spending the night on an enemy ship during the attack on Fort McHenry was an intense experience for Francis Scott Key, and he expressed his feelings by writing a poem about the event. In the poem, he describes the American flag which flies above the fort as long as it has not been captured, and remembers the darkness of the night as he waited to see if the dawn's daily light would illuminate an American and British flag.
Many copies of the poem were
printed, it soon became very popular. People began singing the words to the tune of a well-known song, To Anacreon in Heaven, which was written about 35 years earlier for a musicians' club in England. Together, the words and the music eventually became the national anthem of the United States of America. You are invited to stand for our national anthem.
In 1861, in response to the recent election of President Abraham Lincoln, 7 southern states decided they no longer wanted to be part of the country. When this decision was rejected by the government, the Southern Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter. When Lincoln called for all the states to send troops to fight the Confederacy, 8 more states decided to join the South, and the American Civil War had begun.
During the war, the band leader Patrick Gilmore wrote a song about how happy it would be when the war was over and the soldiers finally returned home. Writing under the name Louis Lambert, Gilmore described the town in celebration at the return of their men. While the name Johnny is often taken as a generic term for any soldier, Gilmore might also have been thinking of his future brother-in-law, Captain John O'Rourke, who was fighting for the Union Army.
Being based on a popular old melody, the new song quickly took its place in the folk repertoire of our culture, spawned many variations. Well, one version, Johnny I Hardly Knew Ye, was a sad song about a soldier who was pressed into service by the British and was terribly disabled. Gilmore's When Johnny Comes Marching Home is a reflection of the hope that all our soldiers will be saved. This sentiment still rings true today as we await the return of our soldiers to prove our women.
Welcome and hurrah, hurrah, the men will cheer, the boys will shout.
As the Western world came into the 20th century, there was great tension between many major powers. Attempting to create security for themselves, the most powerful countries had created a complex network of agreements and alliances. As a result of this situation, the beginning of the First World War in 1914 led to the involvement of most of the world, including the United States.
In 1915, Canadian field surgeon Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae was working near the front lines in an area of Belgium known as Flanders. The deaths of many soldiers, including his friend, Lieutenant Alexis Helmer, inspired him to write the poem In Flanders Fields. In his poem, McCrae speaks for the deceased soldiers, reflecting on their short lives and calling on others to take their place, so that the dead may rest in peace, having not died in vain. The bright red poppy flowers, which grew in the disrupted battlefield, soon became a symbol of remembrance.
The poem has since become a fixture in many ceremonies, and many other poets have written their own responses to follow it. However, many have criticized it for appearing to state that the only proper way to honor the dead is by taking their place and continuing to fight the war. Those who believe that the best way to honor the fallen is by working to end all war sometimes choose a white poppy flower as a symbol of remembrance.
Still bravely sing.
War, conditions remained unstable in Europe, continuing disagreements over the terms of treaties after World War I, along with the Great Depression allowed Mussolini and Hitler to rise to power. The German invasion of Poland in 1939 started the Second World War, and all of the world powers soon became involved. The United States supported the Allies early on before becoming officially involved after the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. It was during this time that the United States government adopted the Pledge of Allegiance as part of the flag code.
In 1892, a children's magazine called The Youth Companion published a program for public school students to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's voyage. As a central part of the program, American Baptist minister and Christian socialist Francis Bellamy wrote a new salute for students to recite. The original wording is, "I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all."
Over the time, the pledge was changed to specify the United States of America, so the immigrants would not be pledging to the native flag. This version reads, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all."
The pledge eventually became a part of the practices of many groups, such as the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and Freemasons. It was changed again after the Knights of Columbus advocated for the addition of the words "under God." Although these words are the target of most modern controversy over the pledge, long-standing criticism target the pledge for its ton of blind patriotism, and some groups even consider it idol worship.
In light of these concerns, the consular have been ruled that the pledge can be led in schools, but that no one can be required to stand or to recite the pledge. But now we invite you to join us as we consider the meaning of these familiar words. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Second World War was followed by a period of unstable peace between the communist world led by the Soviet Union and the Western world led by the United States. During this Cold War period, the major powers never fought each other directly, but instead were involved with opposing sides of smaller conflicts, such as Vietnam and Korea.
In the United States, the seemingly unified patriotism of World War II began to give way to many diverging public opinions. As citizens look back on the controversial events of the war, such as the internment of the Japanese Americans and the use of nuclear weapons on civilians, they had to come to terms with the action that had been carried out by their government. While some came to oppose the very idea of the military, others believed that you can support the troops and honor their sacrifice while protesting the things that soldiers are ordered to do. Folk music became an important way of expressing this kind of patriotism.
Girls have picked them, everyone. When will August 1990, military of Iraq took over the state of Kuwait. The United Nations protested and seeing many countries join the military force led by the United States. To push the Iraqi troops back out of Kuwait, the media played a new role in this first Gulf War with live news reports from the front lines and point-of-view images from the bombers.
Lee Greenwood's 1983 song, God Bless the USA, became something of an anthem for this war and for a number of other events since. The song expresses thanks for the beauty of the country, the people who make it what it is, and the people who protect the United States of America.
September 11, 2001, 4 American airplanes were taken over by the terrorists and used to attack people in the United States. This event ushered a new era of warfare involving broad militant networks not tied to formal governments or national borders. As this attack occurred, hundreds of emergency workers were dispatched to the scene and more than 400 of them did not survive the day.
As we conclude our observance today, we remember that there are brave people who are willing to put their own lives in danger to help others. Sometimes they're police, firefighters, paramedics, doctors, soldiers, and others who have chosen dangerous jobs. But at other times, ordinary people like teachers, volunteers, activists, and retail workers find themselves in extraordinary situations. Just as the world of 1918 reserved this day to give thanks to the heroes of their time, we use our final song to reflect on the meaning of heroism today.
Veterans Day program. We hope that you enjoyed our performance and that we gave you some things to think about. On your way out, please take some notice to the stars lining the walls of our hallways. Each star was created to honor a member of our community who has served our country, showing us that real heroes are all around us. You are also invited to take one of the poppy flowers decorating our walls. These flowers remind us to honor the sacrifices of our heroes by working toward a more peaceful future.
This concludes our Veterans Day tribute. Parents, if you are taking your child home with you, you must send them out in their classroom. Thank you.
Before we finish, I just want to make sure that I remember to thank the classroom teachers who helped to organize this, helped the kids to practice their parts and the reading parts and everything. Can I get a round of applause for this?